what do you think makes a meaningful career?
What is the difference? Why you prefer coaching over mentoring? How do we distinguish ourselves from the pack? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
And oftentimes our hands have to get dirty. What could be the best outcome for this situation? I'm Michael.
I'm Regine.
And this is Gears in Motion. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think this is interesting too on the subject of impact. We talked about building your technical excellence early on, being able to find somewhere where you can contribute and contribute well. Tell me, how do you keep yourself sharp technically even now? I mean, you've been in the industry for more than 30 years. Wow. How are you keeping yourself sharp in contribution?
Okay. Couple of things. Of course, there are things that I used to do at the beginning of my career that I cannot do. Don't ask me to go and design a bridge right now, right? Because I haven't done that in a long time, right? However, there are things that you can tell make sense or don't make sense, right? You can catch things, you can have a conversation with people about, and then your areas of special, your specialty area sometimes changes. So when you become, like in my case, a project manager or a program manager for large projects, for mega projects, the different areas that are involved, you have to have discipline leads, for every one of these areas. What you should be able to do is to be able to have a good understanding of all of these areas enough to prompt questions, to bring about solution, to have people think a certain way and work with that. And so now that I'm even in another sphere, which is in equity, I used to be a program manager, I used to be an area manager and all of that. But now I am working director of infrastructure and mobility equity. So to answer your question, so equity, this is something that in transportation is new. We see the latest bill that was signed by the president, is very heavily focused on making sure we build a system that is more equitable, to every, to more equitable. So having said that, so I've been asked to work on that because it's a purpose. Well, I've been asked, I actually volunteer to work on that left program management, to take this position where we actually are developing, the training, the rules, and helping people see the risk associated with a lack of equity and how to really meet those equity requirements. What is that? What does that consist of? What are the areas that are impacted? How do you see and how do you identify a problem and need, and who is supposed to help you come up with those solutions? And so, having been, an engineer, yes, I have an MBA also. I've been to business school. So what did I do? Cornell has an online certificate on equity and inclusion and diversity. So now I'm in the process of earning that certificate. That's how you kind of stay abreast. It may not be at the same level as you did it when you studied your career, but you're able to see problems or solutions and anticipate and have visions. And then when it comes time, you go to a different area. Nothing says that just because you're 50 plus, you can't go back to school and hone. You may not have to go back and do a batch or whatever, but you can get a certificate. You can learn the terms. You can look for what is a behavior that is not reflective of equity and how you can help to correct that. And so that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm hoping by the summer, I'll have my certificate.
Excellent. Well, that's good. Yep. I think you're never too old to go back to school.
Never.
Learn something
Even
new.
though when I'm in the middle of it, I'm like, really? Regine, are you really? But I also know, but there is also a sense of accomplishment, a sense of making that you can learn. Knowledge is exciting. At least for me,
Yeah.
learning has always been something that
Same.
excites me.
Same.
Always have.
Same. Yep. Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about planning. Let's talk about planning for the future, because I think it's
Mm-hmm.
fitting. We've talked
Mm-hmm.
about kind of what your initial mindset was. We've talked to you about some of what it looks like to contribute, both professionally and then outside of your professional space. We talked a little bit about the opportunity in Montreal, and I think that was a good reminder for me that sometimes you have to make decisions in the moment. There are unexpected opportunities that come up, and you have to be ready to assess them. How do you think through unexpected opportunities? If you were to go back in time and reconsider that opportunity in Montreal, what would have been your matrix? What would have been your dimensional matrix? What would have been the characteristics you would have either thought of, or the questions that you would have asked yourself when thinking about an unexpected opportunity that comes out of the blue or seems to come out of the blue?
It's funny. I think something people don't give themselves sufficient credit for their gut feeling, their intuition. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not to say that we don't also try to use some logic, and it's a combination of the guts and the mind,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was an exciting proposition. And also I will say one thing that really attracted me to it. There were not too many people who could do what I was doing. Because the reason I was being asked to do it wasn't because those opportunities don't necessarily come to people like me.
Yeah.
In the first place. It came to me because I had this added skill, which was my
Yep.
language, my native language.
Yeah.
And the fact also that I was accountable, dependable, because during the pursuit, I was working with our teammates in Canada, and they liked the fact that I, worked with them. I delivered, I did a lot of, and I got along with others. So that alone, but that was like, okay, what's the worst that can happen?
Mm.
And first of all, it was a P3 project. That's avant-garde. Yeah. Nobody was doing P3s in the United States, really. Or there were some examples, but they were not like what Canada was doing.
Yeah.
And to have the opportunity to get in it and see how it worked, see the different pieces, how they come together, the team, and to gain that knowledge, to me, was something that I couldn't pass on.
Yeah.
And so I always ask myself when I take an assignment, am I building on my resume? Am I acquiring new skills that will take me to the next level?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, what are the risks? I look at the risk. Am I willing to assume them?
Yep.
Then that's my answer.
Yeah.
And whether or not, yes, sometimes you pay a price, right? For it. Yes, I did. I did pay a price for living and going there and doing that. But that was the first time I was doing something for me.
Yeah.
And maybe the price I paid was something that was trying to tell me that it's time that you continue to put yourself first, because if you do well, everybody around you do well. And you need to elevate yourself. You need to continue to do that. You know.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think what's important, you talked about equity earlier in terms of a matrix of risk, and folks are thinking about liability. But I think also when it comes to opportunities, you have to think about what could be the best outcome for the situation, right? Not just what's the worst that could happen, what's the best that could happen.
Best outcome.
Often, yeah, because it's likely going to be in between. It could be the best outcome or even better, or it could be the worst, but oftentimes it's going to be somewhere in the middle. And you want to gauge, okay, is this something I should think about? Tell me about the pressure. Mental health is something that I'm big on. It's something that I'm focused on. How do you nurture yourself in thinking through this process? We've on the heels of so many just recent tragedies, specifically within I feel like the Black community as a whole. There's a lot of times where we're not paying attention to signs. We're not paying attention to pressures and things that are bothering us. We might be achieving, but at the same time, it's at a cost, right? There's a sacrifice.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we're not, I always tell people we're kind of like credits and debits, right? You can take out some, but you can't charge more than what's in you. How would you advise someone to think through opportunities through the lens of my mental health? How do you do that in a way that's healthy and helpful from your perspective?
Well, self-care is something you have to find a way, something that can take you completely outside of what you do every day for, right? And do that. I think one thing that is very important, and especially as like in my case, I am probably more towards the tail end of my career than I am, starting out. It's very important to have a relationship with the person you work with, you work for, and be able to have honest and candid discussions. Because, when you are at that level, you had the trajectory, right? And that trajectory, for better or worse, can makes us who we are in the good terms, and also sometimes it can taint also some of the ways we see things. So that's why it's always good to be open to that discussion, but you have to have somebody who's also on his side or her side open to having honest discussions. Because, and especially for a woman to have gotten to that level, you've seen a lot of things, you've gone through a lot. And so, and then and I've learned to say that. I've learned that from millennial. And I'm smart, right? Because I would never say that before. I would never say I'm smart. Because to me, when I was raised, it was a lack of modesty. But now I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that as a fact that, yes, I'm smart. So when people are at that level, you're smart. So even your boss, two smart people, when you put two smart people together, right, you get along. There is that stimulation from a good intellectual discussion, but there is also the fact that you have two strong people there. And so eventually, right, there has to be conflicts. There have to be. Because if you don't have that, it's not healthy. Because conflicts in itself is not a bad thing at all.
Sure. Yeah.
It is how you resolve it. And to have a boss, a supervisor that you can resolve conflict with is one of the best things to me.
Oh, yeah.
It is the best thing, right?
I speak from experience on that one. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So being able to resolve those conflicts, having achieved the mental health piece, and it's also being able to say, like, this is how I've worked for all this. I need a day. And I need that day where I just disconnect from all of that. And I need to have activities. One of the things I do is I sew. People look at me and they're like, you sew? Yes. I haven't done it in a little while here because I haven't had time. But when I do sew, that's my best form of meditation, because you can't not pay attention to what you're doing, because you don't want to mess up the fabric that you just poured, and it requires, you can be distracted. Sure. And so you have your mind. And so that clears up a lot of those things. So that's mental. You have to have friends, good friends that, that allows you the space to be yourself. And we've seen your better side, but you've seen your bad side too. I have friends that I've asked sometimes, why are you still friends with me?
Oh, Lord.
Because they've seen me, because, no one is a set. I'm not perfect. I don't want to be a perfect person. I think that would be so boring. And so, because life is not. And so they've seen bad part, they've seen the best part. But I will tell you is that this industry, for a Black woman, for a Black engineer, for a Black man also, for that matter, for a person of color, for a woman, it's not for the faint of heart. You need to be strong.
Yeah.
We cannot always be strong. And there has been, maybe that will be time for another discussion. There have been times where I haven't been able to provide my best.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And acknowledging that and saying, like, hey, I am not in a position to do that is actually a sign of strength. more than it's a
Yes.
sign of weakness.
Yes. And I think that there are times when, and especially at the time when I wasn't feeling, it wasn't a short time either. It wasn't my best. I don't think I was able to say it either.
Yeah. Yep. Or recognize it, let
Or
alone saying.
I recognize it, but I could not recognize it within the world I was living in. I was working.
Sure. Yeah. No. And I think we've all been there to some extent.
Yes. Yes. But I think there is an effort being made now to acknowledge that people bring their whole selves to work, right? You can't expect them to just drop some of it as they go through the door, right?
So. Sure. Yeah, no, I 100% believe that. So let's end here on two questions. I have a question about, and they're both about relationship, because I think that's an area a thread that we've talked about throughout our time. How do you think through the people you are influenced by? How do you think through the people that you're influenced by, and even the people that you influence, the people that you mentor? How do you think through those people and approach that with intentionality?
You know, one thing I've learned is that the relationship with the mentor and a mentee that I have, and also there is also the advocacy part, which is a step higher.
Mm-hmm.
Also, but mentor mentee, I don't try and force my way of doing things or of having done things that have brought me to success to someone else, because I believe everyone is different and everybody has a different way.
Sure. Yeah.
However, if you have the ambition of achieving certain things, what I can tell you is, well, have you considered, do you know you might need this? You might need that. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I listened for a long time. And that's something I do that even at work. I listen. The first part of the relationship, the first part of even starting a new job is to sit and listen and observe.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not a judgment. I'm not trying to pass judgment on you. All I'm trying to do is to bring what is in you, what is already present in you, out to the open, because you cannot see it yourself sometimes because you don't have the experience, or maybe you're going to some other things that keep you from being able to see what you have in yourself, that just waiting for the right opportunity to come out. So you may have, I will ask you eventually to tell me what you want to eventually achieve and what we talk. And we may have, the short term, mid-term and long term, and we start working, but we have goals though. We have some goals, milestones that we want to accomplish.
Yep.
And so we do that together. So I help you, I encourage you to achieve that. But I see my mentorship role as being more than a mentor. I see myself as being an advocate as also, because I have the chance of being at the table most often. Mm-hmm. And so when I hear people advocate for others, my role is to advocate for not only my mentees, but the people who nobody else is advocating for.
Yep. No, that's so true. What characteristics do you think you look for when you're looking for mentees, or when you're looking for people that are influencing you? Because there's obviously people that are influencing you. What are those characteristics that you think are most special to your heart, most intimate to you?
But first of all, I forgot to mention also is that the mentees bring me so much.
Yeah.
So much. Look at today, what we're doing today. You're the one who brought it up. We said, why don't we do this and all of that? And there is so much more that you taught me just by listening to you and even our exchanges. And I think I look to that also for mentees. They have to be able to bring something.
Yeah. Some value.
Yes. Value proposition, right? Everywhere you go. What's the value proposition, right?
Yeah.
Why should I take you on?
Yeah, that's a valid question.
On as a mentor? Why should I take my valuable time? Because, if I don't mentor you, my life is going to be okay. I'm going to continue on my path to success.
Yeah.
So what is the value that you also bring? What are you trying to do? And I also ask my mentees to also return the favor and mentor others.
Yeah.
So my mentees have been on my journey with me too, where they will be on panel discussions. They will be talking to other youngsters about engineering, about STEM, and so we do all of that. So I'm very intentional about that, about making sure and also giving the time.
Yep.
And sometimes I'm not successful, especially if we are in a different uh, industry, because I have mentees from other realms than transportation too, and they have to remind, and I have no problem, but I tell people, please remind me of something, remind me, and be assertive with me also. And you have to have high expectations of me as well, because I should do for you. And if I realize that, because I've had mentees who wanted to accomplish certain things, but when I was trying to ask them what the work they were willing to do on themselves to accomplish, and they never even considered the fact that they had to work on themselves. And so that's, to me, a signal that the person is not quite ready.
Yep. I think turning that question around, what is the value that you bring? I think I'm so glad we found that one photo from when I went to Michigan with you years ago. That almost hurt my heart when we couldn't find the photo. I was like, we were there. We took a great picture. It was a perfect experience to be able to serve on a panel with you.
No, it was my pleasure, because I realize also that those young students, they want to hear from someone who is closer to their age than from somebody who's more likely to be considered a parent.
So. Yeah, but it's a blended.
It's a blend.
Mm-hmm. It's a blend for sure. All right, last questions time. Mm-hmm. How do you build your cohort? How do you build your community? There are other women that are in your, for lack of better words, your tribe, your village, your sounding board, your board of directors. How did you start building that? And what are some aspects, what are some characteristics of that community?
Of course, I have this woman, because first of all, you need them. You are blind. You have blinds. We all have blind spots.
Yep.
We all have blind spots, and we are on a constant journey to enhance, to improvement.
Yeah.
And they help you do that. And then some of the women I look to, I am very blessed to have women that I've met to my other, board representations, working on other boards, and I see women that they just have something in themselves that I think I haven't perfected yet.
Yeah.
And so I will approach them and say, this is what I see in you, and I would love, do you mind spending some time? Do you mind? Or you open to having discussions? And so they very often are. And so a lot of the women have also understand some of the challenges that I have, because they've had to go through that in order for them to achieve what they've achieved. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of women who are CEOs of organizations. Mm-hmm. Their own businesses, etc., that are gracious enough to give me some of their time.
Yeah.
And I have other women, and I have men also, who also, because we don't want to have our mentors or advocates to be all the same gender.
Yeah,
we
sure.
Want to have a cross section, because we're talking about diversity, right? Yeah. Inclusion. It's diversity is in all of those realms. Those are the different opinions, the genders, the race. Who are the racial composition of your board of directors. Yeah. Also. And so I have people of all, and they have been extremely helpful. I have people that I know after work I can call and we have a conversation, and it's mostly we laugh, but we have a good time, and they know I need to just release some tension, some stress. Yeah. And I have others. And what I like about the women that I surround myself with is how we exchange opportunities for one another. We identified and we just say, oops, Regine, I thought of this. I saw that. That would be perfect for you. We want to position you for this. We want to position you. And I do the same, and we support each other. There is never I call them grown women.
She said grown woman. I like that. And I think I think it's just, I know I can vouch and affirm for that as well. The number of of women, particularly in my life, that have been helpful for helping to coach me through blind spots, to help me see different opportunities differently, and to really grow and pour into my career as well. Regine, this has been wonderful. I've so enjoyed the time that you've spent, the knowledge that you've shared, and you definitely dropped some gems.
This is Regine.
This is Michael.
Until next time.